Now, terrorists require money to operate, and without this funding, they cannot purchase weapons, equipment, supplies, or service. The source of these funds most times are illicit, and they come in tranches rather than in a lump sum. Now, terrorism financing is a global phenomenon that threatens the security of countries. It can also undermine economic development and financial market stability. Now, how can it be efficiently stopped? This is part of our discussion that we'll be talking about right now. Nigeria and Nigerians have been very, very eager to talk about the financing of terrorism across the region and across the country. I have with me in the studio public affairs analyst Daniel Akinlami to help us make sense of this. Good morning and good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Now, financing terrorism, some say it's becoming lucrative for those who are involved in the business. And for the others who are on the receiving end, we can see how more people are becoming victims of terrorism that is on the go and continuing. Now, for Nigeria as it is, recall that sometime last year, United Arab Emirates arrested about six Nigerians for their involvement in financing terrorism. Now we hear that the government of Nigeria is involved in also some people have been earmarked to be arrested. In fact, yesterday on the papers, we hear that BDC operators and even gold dealers and all of that, some of them were suspect. Talk to us about what this means to you when we're seeing some movement in that regard.
Well, obviously, it's a welcome development. Don't forget that many people have advocated for the federal government to nip in the bud the funding of terror activities in the country. It took us this long to start to begin to crack down on the movement of money into terror organizations. Also, we should not forget the fact that the pressure put on Nigeria from the incident that happened in United Arab Emirates, where about 6 Nigerians were arrested to be involved in funding terror activity in West Africa. I think that pressure also brought about the recent activities that we saw in the arrest of some bureau de change operators.
But it took another country to take action before Nigeria.
Obviously, this is where our problem has been. If we look at it critically, the funding we're even talking about is beyond the movement of cash transfer, money moving through BDC. The funding of terror is quite big. If you look at it, there's an aspect of trade in it. They also capitalize on the local activity of business and trade when they seize and take over towns and villages. Many of these activities we've seen, reported even in the media. Look at some places in Yobe and Borno that have been taken over by Boko Haram. They place levies on the villagers. They place levies on farmers. So those are some of the other ways. And apart from the trade activity, they also engage in illicit drugs movement, woman trafficking too. There are times there have been reports about some of the captives being exchanged. Some were even sold to another terror group or organization.
Now, but the feeling is that, or the assumption is that, in fact, financing terrorism is not cheap at all. If you're looking at
it's not at all.
The Naira and Kobo of
and it's big.
Exactly. So what do you think these people really want? Because they already have the resources.
Exactly.
If we have to put it that way, they have a large amount of resources at their disposal. And what do you think they really want?
Actually, if we're to be sincere, we are very late on this.
Wow.
Nigeria should have worked more harder in blocking the funding to the terror activity many years back. But as far as we want to put in the willpower now to do the right thing, I think government should go all the way out beyond the money laundering and the bureau de change activities. There are quite numerous ways, avenue, where the activities of terror is continue to be funded, even through kidnapping. So we need to look at everything holistically. But one of the things I identify as a problem over the years is the fact that most of our security agencies lack cooperation to work together, to share information. Yes, interagency. That has been our bane in combating the movement of funding.
Why do you think that is anyway? Because the police cannot do this alone, the DSS can't do this alone, the military can't do this alone. Why do you think they're not coming together?
Well, because some of these things that are coming out today are not new. These things have been going on for years. Some people are aware. They probably refuse to take action, or some are sympathetic to some of these activities. So the people in charge of the security apparatus, the gathering of intelligence, they need to be more patriotic. We cannot just say today now we are aware some of these people are moving money in and out of Nigeria to support terror activity. This thing has been going on for years. So people just need to be more patriotic. People who are in charge of the intelligence gathering, they need to help this country. We all need to consider the interests of our nation so that we can stop the terror activity that has been going on in our land.
All right. When you talk about patriotism, I wonder where, because for anyone who doesn't have patriotism right now, I wonder how we have to, or we can begin to make such kind of person become patriotic if nothing is given to him, or because for anybody to begin to lose confidence in the system, not to be patriotic anymore, what would it take to bring the person back to the table of patriotism?
Okay, what could actually bring about the interruption in dissemination of intelligence is simply because maybe perhaps one agency will probably not trust another agency. And the ones that we've gathered, how much of action have we taken? Okay. When it gets to the level of decision makers, the people at the top of the hierarchy on the security apparatus, how many have we taken decision? Some of these things that we're talking today, the military intelligence cannot say they have not been aware. The DSS cannot say they've not been aware. These are things that even researchers, international agencies who have been involved in following up some of the terror activities in West Africa, including our own Boko Haram challenge, they've been making proposals over the years that these are the things that these people are doing, these are the areas where they are generating funds, these things should be nipped in the bud. So, but what we need to focus on right now is the fact that government need to step up. We've wasted so much years to allow some of these things to continue.
And then it became more complicated over the years.
Exactly. So we are coming late on this. So government need to step up.
Yeah.
And the people in charge of the security apparatus, they need to devote more time to protect Nigeria.
Well, what do you think is the greatest challenge in trying to cut that finances of terrorism over the years? Is it the issue of will, or is it the issue of capacity or skill or equipment? What do you think was the biggest challenge?
I think one of the biggest challenges we're facing is the willpower on the part of the government. If the government is ready, no matter how little the intelligence in our hand, we can begin to act on them. For example, we have had several incidents of arms being interrupted, being moved within the country. We've had incidents of arms being seized at our ports. Large cache of arms. And there is no prosecution till now.
And those are the ones they saw.
Yes, these are even the ones in the media.
It's possible there are others
several that have escaped to enter into the country, and several others that have been intercepted, but they were not in the media. But for those ones that were even carried, that the public were aware, how many have we got people arrested and prosecuted for? We start from little things like this. We can begin to nip things in the bud before they go haywire. So the commitment on the part of those who are in charge of the security is also needed. People need to live up to their responsibility to protect this country.
All right. I was discussing the issue of proliferation of arms yesterday, and from the statistics, we see that there's a large, quantity of small arms, light weapons in the hands of so many people who are willing to wield it anyhow they want to wield. How does that compound the terrorism situation we're trying to solve or resolve here?
Well, that is also what has led us to where we are now. The time that we ought to have taken action to stop this movement of arms, we didn't. The proliferation is all over, and we just need to work harder to step up on our border control for now to stop this before the whole thing explode on our country. But what we can still do, irrespective of where we find ourselves now, is government to deploy full willpower to control this. And how do we begin to start? People should be prosecuted. Those who break the laws of Nigeria should be prosecuted. If you are found moving money for a terror organization, you should be prosecuted immediately. If you are found importing arms to support any illegal operation in the country and you are arrested, you should be prosecuted. And one of the things that we should be aware of is the fact that when we have the victims of terror activity still languishing in IDPs, people who have lost their families, we even have our servicemen who have died. We need to be very careful. Even if we're thinking of giving amnesty to those who have repented, but we should be very, very careful that as a nation, we are not sending a wrong signal, a wrong message, that we are encouraging evil while we are fighting evil.
A lot of Nigerians have talked about that issue of granting amnesty or reintegrating, repentant terrorists back into the society and all of that. Well, I wonder if you see that as a solution to this.
Well, it's not a one-way thing. We have a lot of work to do. We're just talking about armed proliferation now. There's still the kidnapping and the different aspects where terror is being funded. And one of the biggest beneficiaries of this terror movement is the ISIS and Boko Haram partnership. So we have a lot to do. We need to step up in making sure that we control our borders first. We need to, especially our neighboring countries that are facing similar challenge with us. We talk about Cameroon, Chad, Niger. We need to tighten up the border control in those axes. And if we can get our hands together, our intelligence need to improve. Some of these things, there are people that are assigned, there are agencies that are assigned to intercept some of these movements of money and even arms. So but what have they been doing over the years? Even the little intelligence they gather, how much do they act on them? So those are the areas we must begin to look at. This is a welcome development that some people are actually arrested. But we should have been doing this like 5, 6, 7 years ago. But thank God Nigeria is now looking at its direction now. Because for us to stop terrorism, we must be able to stop the funding.
The funding, exactly.
And the financing.
All right. Now, someone was arrested just a few days ago as for giving information, internal information to terrorists, and leading to ambush, of the army and all of that. Now, when you talk about issues of infiltration of the security network or security system and all of that by, enemies of the state. In fact, former President Goodluck Jonathan had said so before, that the military the military had been infiltrated by Boko Haram elements. Now, how does that pose a greater threat to the fight against terrorism?
Well, I think is even one of the biggest challenges in the fight against terrorism. Because if the people that are leading the war perhaps cannot trust themselves. So people have alleged many times that perhaps the operation against Boko Haram, that they are Lafia Dole. So they are probably agents within the army structure that are perhaps giving information to the terrorists. But as much as it's an allegation and people insinuate, we cannot just toss it out. We also need to look inward. We cannot rule out the fact that there are infiltration. So those who are in charge of the security system, they need to look inward and build a system that is foolproof. Let's have officers who are totally committed to undo some of these operations, especially the one that's going on in the Northeast. So we need to look inward and block all the loopholes where our intelligence is failing. You cannot pinpoint right now to say, okay, is this direction where we are suffering infiltration or that direction? But there is a pointer to it. If you look at what has been happening, especially in the Northeast, especially Borno State, in the past 3-4 years, several attempts that Boko Haram has made against our troops. We need to change strategy. We need to look at the troops that we have, and we need to block all the loopholes where our intelligence is failing. But beyond that, we should also consider promoting patriotism. Those who have served gallantly should be well rewarded. Those who have given all their life to protect the country should be honored. So we cannot have our men out there trying to protect the country. Some are falling down, some are dying, and we still having a way to still allow those who have been arrested to get away. So we need to do more as a country.
Now, there has been a military joint task force between the neighboring countries, like you mentioned earlier, Chad, Cameroon, Niger Republic, and even Benin Republic with Nigeria, as a way of trying to ensure that kind of collaboration. Now, from those countries, from the reports we get, we see how decisive they move against insurgents from their own territory. But when it comes over here, anyway, maybe the reports we get sometimes may not be the true reflection of things out there, but we get this report sometimes. How much more collaboration or change of strategy would you like to see between the countries that are involved here?
Well, I think we've had the relationship over the past 6 years, joint operations, and we've got results. But we cannot rule out the lethargy and also the tiredness in the system. But that's why...
So the morale is dropping.
Yes, the morale is dropping. So that's why a lot of people were actually pushing for the change of the service chiefs. So now we have the new people in charge of the affairs now. I think perhaps we should be seeing some new improvements soon, especially with the new set of service chiefs. So we should be seeing some new improvement, especially as far as the war against terror is concerned.
New innovation, creativity, new strategy.
But beyond that, the federal government needs to deploy more willpower in combating the funding and financing of terror. And we need to also demonstrate to the world that we actually fighting the war of terror.
And let the world know Nigeria is still the leader on the continent. Daniel Akelami, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much.